Hi, everybody. It's so great to be with you again for the latest episode of Get on the Grid with Chessie Roberts. I have a returning guest tonight, Garnet Schulhauser. He's the gentleman who wrote Dancing on a Stamp, and he's written another book, and I just can hardly wait to get into this. But before we do that, he and I would like for you to join with us in aligning with the energies of co-creation so that this show gives you the best information to your highest good and best outcome. Welcome, Garnet. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Chessie, how are you?
I'm wonderful. For any of my listeners who haven't yet met you, I want to tell them that Garnet Schulhauser is a retired lawyer who lives near Victoria on Vancouver Island with his wife, Kathy, and little dog, Abby. He grew up on a small farm in Saskatchewan and moved to Calgary, Canada, after law school, where he practiced corporate law for over 30 years with two blue-chip law firms. After retiring from his firm in 2008, he began a new career as an author, and his first book, Dancing on a Stamp, was published in 2012. Since the release of his first book, Garnet has been active with book signing tours and speaking engagement and has been a frequent guest on radio shows like this one. When he's not writing or connecting with his followers, Garnet enjoys golfing, nature walks in the forest with Abby, family gatherings with his sons Blake and Colin, and their partners Lauren and, I hope I say her name right, Burgess, and granddaughter, is it Chimera?
Chimera, yes.
Oh, what an interesting name. Your life just sounds amazing. So tell us what's going on with your new book.
Well, it's a sequel to my first book, Dancing on a Stamp, and as you may recall, Chessie, Dancing on a Stamp was about my dialogue with my spirit guide, Albert, who confronted me initially. I met him first off when he stopped me on the street one day. He was disguised as a homeless man. And after that meeting, he told me he came to answer all the big questions in life that I've been asking myself for many years, like who am I, why am I here, and what happens to me after I die. And so that book basically discloses the dialogue I had with Albert, and Albert asked me to write that book so that his revelations would be available to everyone. And so that one, that was sort of the first encounter I had with Albert, and most of our conversations were held by telepathy, so we just sort of spoke to each other through our minds. And after the first three times when he showed up as the homeless man, he didn't appear to me again in physical form. So I finished my dialogue with Albert, wrote my book Dancing on a Stamp, and then he kind of disappeared for a while. He wasn't around. When I asked him where he was or wanted to ask him questions, he had sort of gone AWOL for a while. So it's getting a little frustrating.
Is that an odd feeling?
Yeah. He had told me that I had to write more books.
A little bit, please, Garnet? I'm having a little difficulty hearing you.
I'm sorry?
I said, could you speak up just a little bit? I'm having a bit of difficulty hearing you.
Okay. Is this better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So anyway, after an absence in terms of our interaction, all of a sudden Albert shows up again. It was very interesting because whereas before we had our conversations by telepathy, I was sleeping one night in my bed, and something made me wake up, and I looked towards the door and in my bedroom, and there was sort of this ethereal figure sort of shimmering, standing there in the doorway. And it started moving closer to me, and it got to the foot of my bed. I recognized that figure as Albert in his homeless man disguise. So I said to him, well, hi, Albert, how are you doing, and what are you doing here? And he said, well, I'm here for sort of the second round of disclosure that I'm going to tell you about. Only this time, rather than just you and I speaking, I believe that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I'm going to take you to places, to the spirit side, to other places in the universe, other places on Earth, to show you things that I want you to write about. And I said, well, how are we going to do this? Like, are we going to be gone long? Well, what will my wife say when when I disappear for a while and I'm not, I haven't told her where I'm going, like what's happening. He said, don't worry. He said, I'm going to take you in your astral form, and you'll be back in your physical body before the morning, and no one will know that you ever left. So then
Let me interrupt you here to ask you, is this your first time in doing anything astrally?
Yes, absolutely. Very first time.
That was a treat.
Oh, yeah. I've read about people who've had near-death experiences and who've traveled, when they're on their deathbed and gone to the spirit side and visited with relatives and so on. I've read about those people, their adventures, and I've read about Mr. Monroe, and he wrote several books on his astral travels, which he sort of learned to initiate himself, but I'd never been able to do that before, so this is all entirely new to me. Anyway, so Albert reaches out and grabs my arm and basically pulls me towards him, and basically he pulled my astral body out of my physical body, because I turned around and looked in there. My physical body was still lying in bed, beside my wife and my little dog. And so with him holding my hand, we kind of just rose up through the ceiling. And I learned then that when you're in astral form, nothing physical on our earth plane can actually stop you. Like you float through walls and ceilings like there's nothing there. So we floated on up into the sky, and he took me to sort of a point high above the earth, where I looked back and I could see our planet. It's amazingly beautiful from that sort of vantage point, and it's something I wish everyone could see. But we really live in a very beautiful planet. It looks amazing from space. Anyway, then he took me through the doorway to the spirit side. And the spirit side, of course, Chessie, as you know, is some people call it heaven or the other side. It's the place that all souls came from before we incarnated on Earth, and it's where we're all going to go back. It's it's our home. So
definitely a unique experience, isn't it?
Oh, it was amazing. So he took me home, and first we went through the doorway, and we were in this amazingly beautiful meadow that was just it had wildflowers in sort of like 1,000 different colors, and lush green grass, and a beautiful sky, and trees, and it was like sort of the most beautiful meadow you could ever imagine. And we strolled up over a hill, and on the other side was a group of people that I recognized as I got closer. And in this group was basically my welcoming party. It was my mother and my father, my brother, my grandparents, and other relatives who'd already crossed over. So it was an amazing reunion. It was very wonderful. I was welcomed with open arms, and I was a bit concerned about meeting my mother, because she was a staunch Roman Catholic when she was living on this planet, and my first book, Dancing on a Stamp, was not kind to the Catholic Church, and so I was afraid that she might have some misgivings about what I had done. But that was dispelled very quickly, because she just wrapped me in a big hug and said, if I was still on Earth, I would be unhappy with you because of your first book, but now that I'm here, I see the big picture, and what you've done is great, so keep it up. So that was a big relief for me. Anyway, and then and then Albert sort of so we didn't linger long there, but then Albert took me into this beautiful white city on the spirit side called Aglaia, which is just one of the cities on the spirit side, and it was really quite amazing, because the people on the streets, these are all souls who were back on the spirit side, but who had lived lives on Earth. And when you're on the spirit side, you can choose to appear basically any way you want to. So you can be just a ball of energy if you like. You can, or a lot of people choose to appear like they did in one of their past lives on Earth. And it's not necessarily the last one; it could be just one of their favorite ones. And so it was amazing the different clothing that I saw on these people from all countries in the world and from all ages. It was just an amazing. It was like I was dropped into the middle of a costume ball.
Yeah.
And it was really quite fascinating. And Albert said, "Yeah, I mean, the people here, you can appear one way one day, and the next day you could totally change your appearance, and you have the total freedom." But people were just sort of freely.
Let me ask you a question here, Garnet.
Yeah.
When I've been to the other side, and I do this quite a lot in the astral work that I do with spirit, I have never seen people. I feel feel energies moving, and I see light, but I never recognize anyone as a specific person. Is it different for everyone when they go there, or is it kind of a whatever you think you're going to see, you see sort of thing, or do you know?
I think there's a bit of that, Chessie. I think it can be different for everyone, and I think that they were maybe putting on a special show for me, so that I could write about it. But like when you say you don't see people, you just sort of feel energy. Well, a lot of times souls will just appear as like balls of light or energy. But in this case, I think for my benefit, they were putting on a show for me. I could only assume that. I didn't ask Albert that. But
that would make sense.
Yeah, and so I guess they thought it would be better for me to describe this wonderful scene with people in different costumes as opposed to saying I saw 100 balls of light.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think it can be different for everyone, and I think they did a special show for me. It was really quite amazing. And so we walked down the street, and Albert takes me to this big, huge building, white building with pillars in front called the Hall of Wisdom. And we went in there, and we went into a big sort of chamber, and there was 13 souls sitting there, in white robes, and they had white hair and really, unblemished skin. They looked very regal. And Albert explained that these were the Council of Wise Ones.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Council of Wise Ones.
Okay.
And so he said that these were very wise old souls who were very advanced, and it was their job to oversee the incarnations on Earth. So when souls incarnate, when they prepare their life plans, someone from the Council of Wise Ones will review their plan to ensure that it's appropriate for the soul. So that, for example, sometimes souls will try to bite off more than they can chew in an upcoming life. And if the council feels that way, they'll say, well, hold it there. You better back off, or you're going to have a really miserable time, and you're not quite ready for that yet, so why don't you take a bit of an easier life, and you can get the other experiences in another one. So they sort of give you guidance.
Right.
But it's their job, basically, to oversee the incarnation. So in any event, the meeting I had with them was basically to give a message to me that I should give to humankind. And the message was, hey, you know what, humans, you've advanced a long ways from the Stone Age days. You've developed great technology, but we're concerned because your emotional intelligence hasn't advanced as much as your technological intelligence. And this means that you're still very susceptible, humankind generally, to negative emotions, to fear and anger, jealousy, hate, that kind of thing. And their message was that we're really at a sort of a threshold point, and we need to get rid of our negative emotions and embrace love, and we need to do that before we destroy ourselves with all of our weapons of mass destruction. So it was really a call to action for humanity to stop abusing Mother Earth, to stop abusing other planets or other animals on the planet, and to stop abusing other humans. And we needed to do this individually and collectively as a race, so that we could raise our vibrations and advance up into the new Earth in another dimension, in a higher dimension. And so
I hear this same message from a lot of people that I've had on the show, and my listeners are very familiar with it. And I'm just going to kind of hold your feet to the fire and ask you, do you think as a collective unit that humanity will ever wrap its head around this particular lesson?
Well, I had the same question in my mind. I asked Albert that, and in fact, after a couple of these trips, I was really quite discouraged by what he had shown me, and I really said, Albert, is there really any hope for us? And he said, yes, there is. He says there is hope. He says there's a lot of people trying to help your race right now to get over the threshold and to increase their vibrations before they destroy the civilization. We're getting a lot of help from the spirit side, because there's a lot of very advanced souls that have been born onto our planet in the last few years, and more are coming. and their sole purpose is to give us a hand, to give humanity a hand by being among us and to teach us what we should learn and to set examples. I mean, so we're getting a lot of help from the spirit side. We're getting help from our alien friends, the extraterrestrials. They're also trying to help us in any way that they can. So there's a lot of people who are really pulling for us, but in the end result, it's got to be humans, humanity, that have to actually do it. We have to do it ourselves because no one's going to wave a magic wand over us and say, there you go. We've got to do it ourselves. And as Albert said, that there's been other advanced civilizations in the past that have become very advanced in a technological sense, but their emotional intelligence wasn't there, and they ended up destroying themselves, crashing and burning. And you know all the ones that everyone else knows, like Atlantis and Lemuria. There's a few others that we don't even know about, but you know, it's happened before. And the people on the spirit side, the Council of Wise Ones, are concerned that we're going to end up doing the same thing. And they really want to save our butts this time. And so they're sending messages through lots of channels, through, you know, like through you, through me, through just all kinds of people all over the world are getting this message, and they're broadcasting it, you know, on the radio, writing books, writing blogs, just talking to people. So there's really
what you call the extraterrestrial people who are trying to help us. How do we know when we encounter one of these, whether they're on the side that we want to be on or on maybe the side that would rather see us crash and burn? And that sounds like a very doom and gloom question, but the reason I ask it is I run into a lot of people who are telling me, yeah, they're there, but you have to be careful which ones you talk to. Is there any truth to that statement?
Well, according to Albert, there's several races of ETs who are monitoring what's happening on Earth, and you know, I mean, you hear all the stories about UFOs. Those are just some of the craft that they use. Albert actually took me into one of the UFOs orbiting Earth, and I met with some of the creatures there. And their job was they've been monitoring Earth for eons. They've been giving us help whenever they can, but they can't sort of solve all of our problems. So they plant ideas in our minds, and you know, in terms of advances in building and technology and so on. And they try to send us positive messages to the people who have the ability to wreak havoc on our world. And so they do what they can, but they just can't. They're not allowed to solve our problems. They're not allowed to just destroy all of our weapons. That would be an easy thing to do, but they have a directive of non-interference where they can only help us in very sort of subtle ways and not sort of take care of all of our problems. But to answer your questions, Albert said that the ones that are following us are benevolent. They're there to help us, and so far they've any of the ETs that have not don't sort of aren't reading from the same page as these people and aren't with us, haven't been allowed to come to Earth, and so they're basically, those people have been kept away. Only the benevolent ones are here, and there's several races, and they're here to help us. So according to Albert, there isn't any ETs on the planet who are trying to you know, destroy us or trying to make our lives more miserable.
So would you say that the people who believe that there are deluded somehow, or they're reading the messages wrong, or what would you say?
It's possible they're reading the messages wrong. Yeah, it's very possible. A lot of times when messages come from, you know, from ETs or from the spirit side, sometimes the message is lost or garbled a bit in translation. And that often happens. That's why when Spirit is sending messages, channeling messages to various humans on Earth, the messages aren't 100% identical, because it you know, it depends on the receiver's perspective a bit in terms of what they hear and what they think they hear, and so it's not identical, but for the most part it's fairly similar. So I can't speak to the people who say that there are malevolent ETs among us. That wasn't what Albert told me. You know, as I said, he mentioned that all the races that are monitoring us and are amongst us are friendly ETs who are trying to help us get over the hump.
Well, that's good information to have right there. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Albert.
Yeah. So, in any event, just to jump ahead in terms of my book, before about halfway through our journeys, Albert did in fact take me to visit an ascended civilization in a new Earth, which is just Earth in a higher dimension.
Uh-huh.
And it was very interesting because these people were, they were humans, but they had gotten rid of all of their negative emotions. So there was no crime, there was no hatred, no conflicts. They had everything they needed in a material sense, so there was no money. And they had a very idyllic life where they lived in complete harmony with Mother Earth and with the other creatures on Earth. So it was a very pleasant place to be. And that civilization, I'm sorry?
I said it sounds wonderful.
Oh, it was. And the history of that civilization was that they were a civilization in Central America a long time ago, and some of their leaders had become very advanced in terms of connection with spirit, and they encouraged everyone in their village to learn to connect with spirit. And then one day, another race of humans that was more barbaric and very frightful race started encroaching on their territory. And this group of people who were very peace-loving didn't have weapons and didn't know how to fight. And so what they did was that their leaders appealed to the good spirits on the spirit side for a way out, and they were given instructions on how to train everyone in the village to through deep meditation to effectively in mass ascend up to the higher dimension by increasing their vibration. So the whole village basically moved up to the new Earth and escaped the barbarians who were about to disseminate them. And so it was a very interesting story.
I seem to recall reading something very similar to that in an explanation of that sort of thing that James Redfield wrote in the Celestine Prophecies.
Yeah, I don't remember that. I read that book, but I don't remember that part.
There were several different books. I don't remember which one it was in.
Yeah,
but there was a mass ascension to avoid this sort of thing. So it sounds very plausible to me.
Yeah, and I think it's happened more than once. I was just showing one civilization that did it. I'm sure that there was others, but that was clearly
that was my next question.
Yeah, massive.
Let me ask you, as I have learned and studied and listened to a lot of people, and what I'm being told, at least I think what I'm hearing, is that as humanity raises our vibrational frequencies and we become closer and closer to the higher realms, and as we ascend, the Earth does the same thing with us. Has Albert mentioned anything about that?
No, he didn't mention the ascension of Earth per se itself. He mentioned the ascension of humans.
So we would ascend from, I've heard it described as 3D Earth, 4D Earth, 5D Earth. Is that what you're talking about, or is there a little
Well, I think Albert didn't use those terms, but I think that from what I've read from other people is that they talk about the humans ascending from 3D, where we are now, to 5D.
Right.
But Albert didn't use those labels, but I assume it's the same thing. But what he said was that we aren't necessarily going to have a mass ascension of all humans, and that people gradually will increase their vibrations and make the move on their own, and some will do it before others. So it's not going to be. He didn't foresee a mass ascension. It's going to be individuals doing it, maybe small groups, but it's really a matter of you have to ditch your negative emotions, embrace love and compassion, and raise your vibrations. And once that happens, you can move on to the new Earth. You see, the new Earth has always been there in a higher dimension. So we have Earth in this dimension and new Earth in a higher dimension, and some people have already made the shift, and some of the people who are now living on this Earth will also make the shift, and others won't. And but it doesn't mean that they're forever lost, because when their physical bodies die, their souls go back to the spirit side, and they can choose to come back then to incarnate into someone in the new Earth, or come back to a physical body in the old Earth and help the rest of the people make the shift.
Right. Well, it's been explained to me, and I think I understand it, that where we are here, our vibrations are rather dense and slow in comparison to these ascended people. And as we raise our vibrations, they speed up. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, they speed up, and that's what we have to do, speed up our vibrations, and that then allows us to move into the new Earth, which is in a higher dimension with higher vibrations. And we can't, in our dense physical vibrations right now, we can't make the journey. We can't live there. We have to shift our vibrations up the scale so that we match the vibrations of the new Earth. And we've been increasing our vibrations as we went along, because, as Albert said, if we could appear here in 21st century Earth, if one of us could go back to the Middle Ages and appear physically to those people back there, we would be sort of semi-transparent, because we've already increased our vibrations from what they were back in the Middle Ages. And so we're gradually doing it.
A lot of people out too.
It would. But the interesting thing is that he says, yeah, we've been making progress, and we've been raising our vibrations, but we haven't. Most of us are still here, and we need to take the next step, the next jump to make our shift into the new Earth to increase our vibrations. So that was the main message from the Council of Wise Ones, that we all need to focus on that, to do it ourselves and to help others, so that we can make the shift before we end up, destroying our civilization. So that was their message. And then Albert took me on, a number of very interesting places with similar kind of messages, but with a view to sort of, in some cases, shocking me about what we were doing right now and why we need to change it. And so one of the things after I left the spirit side the first time, he took me to a water planet called Proteus, and it was entirely covered with oceans. There was no land masses, and we dropped down below the surface, and the subsurface looked a lot like, say, the subsurface of beneath the sea on Earth, because I remember what the Caribbean looked like from snorkeling there, and it looked a lot like that. And we ended up meeting with two creatures that lived there. One was a humpback whale, and one was a dolphin. And we had a telepathic conversation. And these two creatures said, that a lot of the sea life that is on our Earth right now originated on this planet and was transplanted from Proteus to Earth by some of the ETs. And that's why they looked exactly like our humpback whales and dolphins, because they were basically the same creature, and our creatures had been just seeded there by the ETs. And they had an interesting conversation with them. They said, we have telepathic contact with our cousins, our kin on Earth, and they tell us a tale of woe about how humans, have been abusing whales and dolphins over the history of humanity, and are still abusing them to some degree these days. And they said to me, look, our cousins on Earth aren't causing you any harm. They just want to live in peace and harmony with you. So why are you killing them and trapping them and abusing them? And can you do something to tell your fellow humans to stop? So it was really quite an imploring sort of a plea that they gave to me, and they wanted me to sort of spread this out to my fellow humans to get them to stop the abuse of whales and dolphins, and for that matter, other creatures on Earth. And then Albert took me to.
Why do we do that as humans? Why do we abuse and mistreat? I
Well,
can't
that's a good
wrap
question.
my head around it.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think in Albert's view, it's because that humans are very arrogant, and they think that they're the only creatures on Earth that matter, that count, that are important, and that the other animals are just there to be used or abused, for the pleasure of humans. And it's just a mindset that humans have had for a long time, and that needs to change. We need to change that radically so that we stop abusing other animals and treat them with respect, because they are thinking and feeling creatures, and they all have their own place in the universe. So it's not like humans are more important than every other creature. We just think that's the case, and that's why we abuse animals.
I would say that's true of plant life as well, wouldn't you?
Yes. He didn't get into the plant life arena with me. He was dealing more with animals. But, I for sure the same thing. I mean, plants have a consciousness, even though we're certainly not aware of it. I'm sure the same thing would go for plants. I think he was just trying to give me little bits of information that I could, bite off and chew at one time,
sure.
without sort of overwhelming me with what happens on Earth.
Well, it is a huge subject.
Yeah. So anyway, so then after we left Proteus, and he took me to Earth just to drive home the point. He took me to a shark finning boat in Southeast Asia.
Oh dear!
And it was amazing because there I was watching this big boat, and the sailors were hauling in these sharks. 4 or 5 different varieties of sharks. And what they do is they haul them on deck. They would take a knife and cut off their fins, and then they'd throw the bleeding shark body back into the ocean, where it would be eaten by predators or it would suffocate because it couldn't swim enough to get water, oxygen through its gills. And it was just absolutely horrific, because all they would keep were the fins from these sharks. And of course they kept the fins so that they could make shark fin soup, or somebody could make shark fin soup.
Heaven's sake.
Which is just awful, because it was an awful abuse of these animals, of awful waste. And humans don't need to eat shark fin soup in order to survive. We have lots of other things we can eat to survive. That's just a sort of a delicacy in some countries, China in particular. And that's just it's just amazing, all the sharks that are killed just to make this one dish that's some people like to enjoy. And it's interesting because I don't know what's happening where you are, but there have been some movements nearby where I am where city councils are trying to ban shark fin soup in an effort to sort of stop this killing of sharks just for their fins.
I think that's a wonderful idea. The only problem with it is once you tell a human being that he can't have something, that's the very thing he's just going to knock himself out to get. And that sounds a little negative, and I didn't really mean it that way. It just seems to be human nature.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing,
everybody.
Of course, the other thing, of course, humans do is they, he then took me to Africa where I saw a field of about several dozen elephants that had been killed, and they get killed for their ivory. And it's really too bad because, elephants are such beautiful creatures. They're very intelligent. And what Albert showed me was that in the old days, the poachers used to shoot them with rifles and then saw off their ivory. Now they're getting smarter and are actually poisoning herds of elephants with cyanide, which is quicker and easier. And this dead herd that I saw had been poisoned by cyanide, and they were just left to rot. The bodies were left to rot. The poachers sawed off their ivory, their horns, and again, it was sold to customers who think that there's some magical properties to elephant ivory. And again, totally unnecessary.
The underlying seed of all of this that you've been talking about is just pure unadulterated greed.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and that's one of the big negative emotions that humans, as a race, have to get rid of, because that's holding us all back, is the greed. And it's something that has to end. So then, when I saw this abuse to the animals, I said the obvious question I said to Albert was, okay, are you telling me that all humans should become vegetarians, that we should stop killing animals for any reason? So interesting answer. He said, humans have been sort of omnivores, ever since they first landed on the planet. That way back when the humans would eat, roots and berries and so on, and they would, kill small animals. In other words, they'd eat whatever they could get a hold of, because they didn't have supermarkets to go to and they needed to survive. So that we've been eating animal flesh for ages, and there's been a movement lately to have people stop doing that and just become vegetarians. But he said, forcing people to become vegetarians is not the way to go. He said everyone should make their own decision. He says that if you eat animal flesh in order to survive, that's not inherently wrong. Just like when a lion kills an antelope, they do it because that's how they have to survive. And so there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with a bison trampling a coyote that's about to kill her calf. That's just all part of nature, part of life on Earth. And he said that eventually humans will realize that eating animal flesh is counterproductive to them in the sense of raising their vibrations, because consumption of animal flesh slows down the process of increasing your vibrations. And so what will happen, he said, is eventually people who have been diligent about increasing their vibrations will find that they no longer want to eat animal flesh, that it doesn't sit right with them, it doesn't feel right, and so they will just sort of naturally quit doing it, become vegetarians, and eventually, he said, humans will learn to just drink liquids that are made, from plants that are grown naturally, that have all the nutritious value that we need to be healthy. That's way up, down the path, but eventually that's where we'll get to. So I know a lot of people will be disappointed at what he said, but he didn't say, yeah, y'all have to become vegetarian right now. But he said, if you don't, you're going to slow down your advance towards making the vibratory shift. So there it is. And unfortunately, I'm one of the people that does enjoy animal flesh, Chessie, and I wished I could do away with it, but it's hard.
Well, one of the things that used to be done, as I understand it, back when we were living off the land and we had to hunt animals for sustenance and protein and strength, was that the hunters gave thanks and gratitude to the animal for sacrificing itself for their nourishment. And I honestly believe, now this is just me talking, please don't send me nasty emails, it's just an opinion, that if we would eat in a more conscious, aware way, we would do a lot towards eating less, vibrating higher, and our bodies would use the energy and nourishment that we receive from our food as better information and nutrition for what it is we're trying to do. Or am I totally off the mark here, Garnet?
No, I think you hit the nail right on the head, Chessie. I think that's exactly what is lacking with us. I think, back in the early days that they did give thanks to the animal that they were about to eat, to give them sustenance, and they respected the animals. And I think we've gone a long ways from that, mainly because we're far apart from the killing of the animal to the meat that gets on our table. We go to the supermarket and we buy our animal flesh and our seafood, and we don't see the animal before it's killed, and we don't have any connection. And that's just the way our modern society has developed. But I think that...
I'm sorry, go ahead. I thought you were done.
No, go ahead. Yeah, I am.
I was going to say what brought this to my awareness was many years ago when I first started on my spiritual path. A friend of mine had me come out and do a cleansing in the woods beside her home because there was an energy there that was scaring her dogs. And when I got there and started communicating with this energy, telepathically, like you say, and asking what it was where the hunters had dressed out the animals in the woods right after the kill, but they had done it with complete oblivion of what the animal was and why it was there, and that the animal had allowed itself to be killed for the nourishment of the family and the whole thing. And these animals were very upset by this, and I don't blame them. And the way we appeased them was we created a feast for them and gave them a gift and gave our appreciation for their sacrifice. And that's what made me believe this particular thought process would be beneficial and helpful to humankind. And I think maybe it's a good first step towards recreating our, meal plan?
No, I think that's well said. Animals are more intelligent than we give them credit for, and they do have feelings and emotions, and they do have souls. So the problem that a lot of humans have is they just think that they don't count, like they're just dumb animals that it doesn't matter what you do to them, but it does. I mean, if you have I don't know if you have a pet. I have a small dog, and she really does have feelings, and I really try to respect them, and I know that there's a lot more going on in her little head than I give her credit for, and when I look deeply into her eyes, I know there's a soul in there, and we just need to have more humans treat animals with more respect, And things like, killing animals for ivory or fins or killing animals for sport, that's just totally abusive and unnecessary, and because we don't need that to sustain ourselves. It's just, killing animals for sport is just, horrific. And when I think about it, I don't know why we tolerate it. It's beyond my belief. But we do, and it happens all the time. We have to get over that so that we can make the shift and treat, all creatures on our planet with respect. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't kill them to eat their flesh, but we should do so in a respectful manner and respect them as a being that was put on this earth for their own purpose, and be thankful, as you say, that they are giving us their flesh so that we can survive.
Well, I do this with plant life as well, because in my humble opinion, plants are just as ensouled as animals and people are. I think everything that we have at our, I don't want to say disposal, but everything that at our discretion here on this particular realm where we find ourselves, I believe is sacred. And if we can hold it as a sacred thing as we move through our day, I think that's going to raise the vibrations of everything around us. Or am I being too simplistic?
No, I think that's exactly what has to happen, and we need to move in that direction. And the enlightened people, like yourself, and myself, to the extent that I am enlightened, we need to spread the message. We need to encourage other people to do the same. And we've got a long ways to go, but if we have enough people on this planet that grasp onto that message and try to encourage others to do the same, then, as Albert says, we certainly have a shot. It's not a foregone conclusion, but we have to do our best, and that's really all we can do.
Well, I think as we begin as a race to hold ourselves to a higher standard, and I think that's part of the problem right now is that we don't see that. But as we do begin to each person hold themselves, and I call it to a worthiness that vibrates with you, as we pull ourselves up, these feelings and emotions and ideas will cascade out to other people. And like you said, the more people who do this, the more people spread the word, spread the light. It'll get there. We've got about 10 more minutes or so, Garnet, and I would love to leave on more of an up note than we've been discussing lately. So what else can you tell us about our ascension and things that we could do to help ourselves get where we want to go?
Well, one of the things we can do is learn to quiet our minds, because we're constantly getting messages from our souls, our higher selves, and our spirit guides. And the messages we're getting are to try to steer us along the right path, to embrace love and to discard negative emotions. And if we were better able to listen to those messages, it would just resonate with us, and we would then live our lives in accordance with those messages, and we'd raise our vibrations. And so that's, Albert keeps on, every time I talk to him, he keeps on saying, you have to learn to live in the present. You have to forget about the past and not to dwell on the future. You have to live in the present and listen carefully to the messages you're getting, and then follow those messages. Because all too often, people just dismiss the messages, they don't hear them, or they rationalize them away, and they let their free will go ahead, running amok and doing awful things to other people. So we really need to... One of
the reasons we don't hear the messages, too, Garnet, is we're such an all-fired rush to do the next thing. Like
Absolutely.
You said, we can't seem to be in our now. We don't relish the moment. And another thing is the TV. Turn the bloody thing off. My goodness, it spews more poison into the energetic atmosphere than anything I've ever seen. And if that's what we're listening to, that's what we're going to think about.
I couldn't agree more, Chessie. And in fact, Albert said, when I was sort of down and out after one of my trips, and I said, I don't know if there's any much hope for mankind, and he said, well, yeah, there is. He said there's a lot of good that's going on in the world. There's a lot of good people, a lot of enlightened people that are doing really good things. He said the big problem is you listen to the TV news, and they highlight the bad things that are happening in the planet. You know, the terrorist acts, the planes going down, the wars, the murders.
I lumped that into a very scientific term, Garnet. It's called yucky stuff.
Yeah, and they really want to push out the yucky stuff. And so if you sit there and listen to it, you can get very discouraged. And like you say, the best thing to do is just to turn off the darn TV, sit quietly, quiet your mind, and listen to the messages from the spirit side, because they're sending you good stuff. And if you can hear them often enough and follow them, then you could just live a more enlightened life, raise your vibrations, and you can help other people around you. And so, you know, I don't want to leave things in a negative note. I mean, you know, we're doing a lot of bad things as a race, but there's a lot of good things going on. And in fact, in my third book, Chessie, he shows me some examples of some very heartwarming tales of people going out of their way to help other people, you know, just random acts of kindness, and that's in my third book, and it's really heartening to know that this stuff goes on, and it goes on more than you think, because the news media doesn't report the good deeds; they report all the bad stuff, all the yucky stuff. So
I have a friend who started a page on Facebook called Random Acts of Kindness, and it's one of the most uplifting places I visit in my day. So I totally understand what it is you're saying there.
Yeah. So you know, we're getting a lot of help from the spirit side, from our ET friends. You know, there's a lot of advanced souls living amongst us who are doing their best to try to encourage people to discard the negatives and increase their vibrations, embrace love, and try to encourage everyone to move up and make the shift. We just have to, you know, the people who are channeling these messages, we just have to do our best to make sure everyone around us hears it. You're doing that in your radio show. I'm trying to do that in my books, and there's all kinds of other people doing the same thing. And there's really a full court press going on now from the spirit side to help humanity so that we can get over the hump before we destroy ourselves, because they really don't want to see us crash and burn like some of the other civilizations. And every
time I talk to spirit and I ask them, what can we do? What can humanity do to make things better? They always tell me to love. And they said that's the most important thing, is to love. And they're talking about the unconditional, non-judgmental, non-guilt-ridden love that comes out of that fourth chakra. And to me, that just feels like the way to go. And when I see some of this yucky stuff, I will sit down and send as much love into the middle of it as I possibly can, because I have discovered over the years of my journey that love and fear and everything that's a negative emotion, hate, greed, envy, you name it, it's all fear-based. And love and fear cannot live in the same place.
I entirely agree. If you totally embrace love, then there is no room for fear or any of the other negative emotions that spin off from that. And so that's the thing. You have to embrace love for yourself, embrace love for all other souls, all other people, all other creatures on the planet, and for Mother Earth herself. And if you can embrace love, then fear is just gone. It's sort of like it's like a snowbank melting in the middle of summer. It just disappears. Yeah. And that's where we need to go. And
that's a great analogy, because that's exactly what happens.
Yeah, and you know, you sending love out when you see some of the yucky stuff, that's actually very positive, because as you know, thoughts are energy, and energy can manipulate other energy and other matter. And the more people who think and send out beams of love, the better our planet's going to be, because one thought is powerful. 1,000 thoughts the same way are way more powerful than just one thought. And if we can all be thinking on the same wavelength, be on the same page, amazing things can happen. Which is how, one of the things I asked Albert about was, some of the miracles that Jesus performed. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, Jesus was just a very advanced soul, a master, who learned how to tap into the power of the universe and to focus his thoughts to do the things that he did, so he could walk on water and turn water into wine and so on. And he said, Albert said, we're all capable of doing that. We just have to learn how to focus our thoughts so that we can eventually someday do the same thing. And so that was very encouraging, and I just think it means that we really have to get everyone aligned to be thinking nothing but love and to just totally discard fear and the other negative emotions.
I think you're absolutely right. And one of the things that social media can help do is to help spread that, because I'm in the middle of several different groups that are doing planetary alignments with love and peace and meditating for these things. And I'm actually feeling differences as I join in with these people. And I can tell when the group is large, because the feelings, the energetic feelings I'm talking about, are tremendously powerful. And from what I have seen from my astral travel, these energies spread across and yes, I'm going to say it, the grid work of the planet, and they affect everyone who's open to them, and this is a very important word, allowing them to flow. That allowing and being open to these, I'm going to call them new thought patterns, I think are incredibly important to all this movement of vibrational raising.
Yep, I absolutely agree with you, and that is why it is so important to get as many people on our planet on side, Chessie, as we can, on the same page, thinking the same thing. And, you know, if you get a whole group of people sending out the same thought, it's very powerful, incredibly powerful. You know, and 1,000 thoughts are very powerful. You know, 10 million thoughts are even more powerful. And we really need to get everyone.
Well, it's that candle analogy. You light one candle and you push the darkness back a little bit. You light more and it finally disappears.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really where we got to go. Anyway, so to end it on a positive note, Albert was very optimistic, as was the council, that we can overcome all of these obstacles and that we can, as a race, make the ascension, make the shift. Maybe not all at once, but we can, you know, do it here and there, and eventually we're capable of having everyone make the shift. But we need to really dig down and work hard, and the people who know where we should be going have to encourage others. Despite the fact that a lot of people don't want to listen to us and don't want to hear the message, it's up to us to do it. And we may be called fools or crazy people, but we have to persevere and carry on, because that's what we need to do to help our race.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to have to close, Garnet, but don't hang up. I'll talk to you on the other side of the recording. But I want to thank you so much for being with us. This has been an amazing conversation. I can't wait to read your new book. And before I let you go, can you let people know how to reach you? And I'll put all this information on the advert for the show so they can see it, but give them a heads up.
Sure. Yeah, and thank you for having me, Chessie. Anyway, people can reach me. The best place to connect with me is on my website, which is dancingonastamp.com. My email address is there on my webpage. I'm quite happy to receive questions and comments, and I'll do my best to respond. You can there's buy links on my website where you can buy my first book, Dancing on a Stamp, and right now you can pre-order my second book, Dancing Forever with Spirit. It's due to be released sometime around the end of March of this year, and then you can buy it in paperback form or download it in ebook form. So I encourage people to check out my website, check out my Facebook page, my YouTube page, and I'm happy to hear from everyone, and I'll do my best to respond.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I've read his first book, Dancing on a Stamp, and Albert's information is incredibly spot on. I do not believe for 1 second that Dancing Forever with Spirit would let you down. So get those orders in there and get that information out and cascade this to everybody. I want to thank all of you for joining me for the show. If you'd like to send in a question or a suggestion for a topic that you'd like covered on the show, send your question, your suggestion, or your request to me at ChessieRoberts.com. You can find all of my information at ChessieRoberts.com, my music at ArchersMeadow.com, and my book is on Amazon.com. Thank you so much for listening, and come back anytime to hear Get on the Grid with Chessie Roberts. Have a bright, wonderful week and bright blessings, and have a great day.